As important as big game players are on game day that owns large postseason implications for both teams, those big game players hold the key to the kingdom. And while I'm here to state that I believe that Tua and the Dolphins were winners Sunday without Tyreek Hill, I believe they're winners by a large margin with him. Miami wins and wins by double digits. You call the number if you want, but 10 or more. That's the news. That's the breaking news, right? A lot of people don't believe it. If you listen to the pundits, if you listen to or read or log on and listen to keynote speakers that do videos for ESPN, CBS, et cetera, the pundits believe that the Dolphins are backsliding a little bit from where they were early in the season. I couldn't disagree more, and the stats don't say such. So I'm not sure where all that comes from. But the biggest news in this game is that I'm a firm believer that Tua has the green light, a green light that he hasn't had since last year, since he had his double concuss or the head trauma that he had that really put Miami behind the eight ball on game day when he wasn't able to play, and probably cost them, I think, a good showing, an impressive showing in the postseason rather than where they ended up. But that said, the return of Tyreek Hill, who practiced Thursday after missing last week's game because of a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain. And while selfish goals are not what most want to hear in football in a game or games remaining in the regular season, especially with two teams that are in the hunt for big games in the postseason, high seeds, maybe even a number one seed, which I think Miami has a chance to get. I believe Baltimore can be overtaken, and that's probably a different video. It is a different video, but we're going to talk about Miami and Dallas here, and why I really like Miami. I'll try to keep this short so I don't bore you guys to tears. But the Tyreek Hill situation is that despite the fact that Miami really needs to sweep these last three games of the regular season, if they do such, they'll have beaten Baltimore in Week 17 next weekend, which would leave them in a tie with Baltimore if they both were to win, obviously, this weekend and in Week 18. They would have the same record, but Miami would own the tiebreaker because they have that straight-up win over Baltimore in Week 17. But you can bet your bare naked arse that Tyreek Hill wants that 2,000-yard receiving mark, to be the first person ever to have 2,000 yards in NFL history. That 2,000-yard barrier hasn't been broken. That's what he wants. And believe me, this is a guy that's a team player, talks about right now about the MVP and being asked that question every single time he goes to the podium for whether it's a post-game presser, a pre-game presser, or whether it's a weekly presser during practice. He always points the finger at Tua and says, let's talk about Tua being the MVP, not me. 2,000 yards would pretty much be it. It'd be very tough to ignore Tyreek Hill for the MVP. And think about 2,000 yards not in a full season. Well, it really would be in a full season. We've expanded the season, all right? We could play 17 games. Used to be 16. Heck, go back. Used to be 15. So that said, 2,000 is big. He's got to average 152.6 receiving yards over the next three games in order to become that first player in NFL history to break the 2,000-yard barrier. That might prove to be difficult against the Cowboys defense that's not allowed a 150-yard receiver since 2021, right? Tua and Hill can do it. Listen, everything this game between Dallas and Miami comes down to how Dallas plays defensively. You've heard, like I said, I've talked about all the pundits that want to say that Miami's backsliding, that they're not the team they were, especially defensively in the early parts of the season. They're better. They're better defensively right now in the second half of the season. They have been in the first half, allowing, I think, 15 points per game over the last six. And Tua doesn't have to throw for 300 yards. This is a team that can run the ball. They've got lightning. They've got thunder. They've got Mozart, who's basically a physical speedster that's as dangerous as it comes, especially when you can send when you can send your receivers on fly routes and post routes. that open up, that leave the linebackers chasing the tight ends and the underneath coverage, leaving it wide open for the running game. So Miami and Dallas, receiver CeeDee Lamb has a big game for Dallas because he's going to be throwing the ball at, so I think we're going to be playing catch up all afternoon. But Tua throws for 250. And the big news is that Tua is going to rush for 50 yards. He's going to start using his legs more now. He's gotten the green light, a light he did not have because of the concussions that he suffered last year. You take Miami here, guys. Take Miami, lay the number, lay an alternate number if you want, and pick up 250 plus 300 with Miami winning by double digits. Before you go, remember that Wager Talk Sports Memo, you can get an all-access, I think it's 20% off, all-access package with code TAKE20. See you next week.